Okay, so we're going to learn about how to do a crate settle here today. Crate settles are great for puppies that are learning how to house train because they have to be in a crate so often. And we want to make sure that they learn that the crate isn't a bad thing. A lot of puppies tend to have these negative feelings about being in a crate because it's a place of confinement. And they look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm going to go in this crate and I'm not going to be able to come out and go and see all the things that I want to see. So really the fundamental training starts by making the crate a good thing. We want to try and convince the puppy that being in the crate is pleasant, more pleasant than being able to go and explore all the other things in the house. So this is a video teaching you how to set up that foundation work for your puppy. Alright, so the first thing we have to do is condition the puppy to the word yes. And the way that we do that is by simply saying the word yes and then giving a treat. So I'm just saying yes, treat. Yes, treat. Yes, treat. Yes, treat. And that way the puppy gets into the habit of hearing that word yes and thinking something really good is going to happen, like a nice yummy piece of food. And we want to teach the dog the word yes so that the puppy knows when it's done something that we want them to do so that we can help train the crate entry. So with this, I'm just throwing a piece of food into the crate, and when the puppy starts to enter into that crate, I simply say the word yes. So long as the puppy stays in the crate, I'm going to keep dropping food on the crate floor so that I can build up the duration that the puppy is staying in the crate. I don't want the puppy to think that going in the crate means that I immediately come back out. I want the puppy to get into the habit of hanging out in the crate and the expectation of having really good rewards come to them. So then at the end, I just kind of release them on cue out of the crate. I say free, and then I kind of give a really grand hand gesture to try and lure them out of the crate. Because again, I want the puppy to get into the habit of going in the crate means I hang out there for a little bit until mom releases me. And so that free at the end of that crate duration, I'm staying in the crate, that free at the end kind of signals to them, now you can come out. And there I do it again. Alright, so here's one of my other puppies. And these guys I just got from the shelter like 24 hours ago, so they've never had any kind of training on them whatsoever. This is brand new stuff to them. So with her, I'm just throwing a treat in the back of the crate to try and lure her in there, and every time she goes in, I say the word yes and treat. I'm keeping the door open. I do not want her to feel like the crate is someplace that she's going to be trapped yet, because I want to build up some positive association before I ever close the door. This crate entry is just training the puppy that going inside of this enclosed space is a good thing. It's something that I want to do. And she just naturally laid down by herself there. That's awesome. So I got really excited and just started treating her, because eventually that's what we want to train her to do. So she jumped the curve there, so I want to make sure that I reinforce that behavior. And then I'm saying free, come on out. Alright, so the next part of this video is teaching your puppy how to sit. I like to teach a sit and a down while I'm doing a crate settle behavior, because eventually I want the puppy to sit into the crate and automatically lay down. And a down starts from a sit. So the way that I train a sit is by having a piece of food in my hand. I have a piece of food in that hand, and you can see she's looking at it. And I'm betting on her wanting to follow that food in my hand. And because she's never been trained before, she's not used to following food in the hand. So I'm almost kind of training her to follow food in the hand at first. I have to kind of teach her to follow it. And when she follows it, I can get her into that sit position. And when she sits, I say yes, because I'm using that marker word again, and I'm giving her a treat. And you see how when I put my hand over top of her head, her eyes follow my hand because there's food in it. And that's what causes her back end to drop into that sit. And I like to teach a sit and a down with the crate settle, because if we can teach our dogs to down on cue in the crate, it kind of conjures up feelings of calmness and permanency, and so the puppy will start to settle on their own here. So from the sit, I've lured her into a down. So when the puppy sits, you take the treat to the nose, and then you bring your hand down in between their front paws, and you almost push their nose back with your hand. So you'll lure them into a sit, and then you have a treat to the nose, and then you bring that treat down in between their front paws, and if you move your hand at all, it's going to be pushing the nose back to the belly button. And a lot of times dogs will pop up out of the sit when you put them into the down position, and that's okay. If they do, you just reset and practice again. With this puppy here, his name is Mojo. Mojo took a long time to down, and so you can see how patient I'm having to be with him. He starts to lose track of my luring hand because he thinks there's food on the ground, so I have to lure him into a sit again. I reinforce for the sit because that's a relatively new behavior for him. And then I lure his nose in between his front paws, and then I hold my hand there. If at any part of this time Mojo broke his mouth away from my hand and stopped interacting with my hand, this wouldn't work. I have to kind of recapture his focus. And the whole time I'm doing this training session, so many of my dogs are barking at this Amazon delivery guy that came to my front door. So there's lots of distractions that I'm working against here. If your puppy does get distracted, just try and gently bring them back into focus by reminding them that you have a food reward. And so now I got him working really well again. So I'm just keeping my hand on the ground, and he's still going for it. And as my hand's on the ground, he can lick and nibble some of the food out of my hand. And that's okay. I'm totally okay with giving him treats even though he's not in the down yet, because what it's doing is it's reinforcing him sticking with me. And the moment that he does do the down, I say yes and I give him a treat. He's got sit really well. Mojo sits better than Lexi, his brown and white sibling, sits, but Mojo does not down as well as Lexi does. He's licking the treat off the top of his mouth. Alright, see how good he is with that sit? He's got a really nice sit on him. And eventually the hand signal for sit looks a lot like the movement that our hand did when we were luring them into the sit. So eventually we just take that food reward out of our hand, and so we just have an empty hand that we put into the sit hand signal position, that hand over their head, and they'll sit without that food lure. Yeah, and then you reward with a treat from the hand that you had hidden behind your back. Alright, so let's talk about how we actually do the crate settle. So the settle part of this means trying to convince the puppy to stay in that crate longer. And I talked about this a little bit before with the crate entry. So we're going to ask for a crate entry by just throwing a piece of food in the back of the crate. And then to try and increase the duration of the puppy staying in the crate to get that settling behavior, I'm just going to keep dropping food rewards in here. And after I feel like he's kind of motivated to hang out longer, instead of treating after every time he gets the piece of food in his mouth, I might start to count to 1 to 2 seconds in my head. So I'd have a crate entry, I'd reward him again, and I'd say 1, 1, like I'm counting 1 second before I reinforce. And when he gets really good at 1 second, then I'll count to 2 seconds. And I cued him to sit there because, again, the end goal with these guys is to get them to do a down stay, essentially, in the crate. And so I want to try and teach him that sitting and laying down can also happen in this crate as well. And again, I've only had, at this time I was making this video, I hadn't had these puppies for more than 24 hours, and they had no training on them. So they don't know the basics of sit or down yet, so I'm having to train it all at once. So right here I'm working the the duration in the crate again, and I'm working the sit. And you can see that he's staying seated in that position, and I'm increasing the amount of time I take before I treat. I'm leaning forward, then I go back, and then I treat. And here is the first time that I try and lure him into a down while he's in the crate. And Mojo struggles with the down, remember. So I'm having to hang out here a lot longer. Look at me. I'm like, oh, this is going to take a lot longer. I'm hunkering down into it. And so you see how he's still nibbling on my hand. So I'm still effectively luring him. I just got to be patient and wait. Oh, he lost the lure, so I brought him back to it. And I'm holding my hand in between his paws. If he breaks off that lure, I'm going to remind him that I have it, and I'm going to keep trying to get him into that down. Patience is everything here. And the moment he does lay down, I'm going to say yes and give him a treat. Almost had it. Nice, he's got it. And I'm just continuing to reinforce him for staying in that position. I'm trying to build that duration of him laying down in the crate. And then I'm going to cue a free. Good job, Mojo. And he doesn't want to come out. All right. And from here, you would just keep repeating it. You do the same thing over and over again. Practice, 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 practice. So he does his crate entry. I cue him to sit. I reinforce the sit. And now I'm going to ask for duration in that position. And now I'm going to try and lure him back into the down. And again, Mojo struggles with this, with the down position. And you got to be patient. The more and more that you practice the down, the quicker and quicker the dog will get into the down position. He just hasn't really connected the dots yet in laying down, paying out. And he's so bendy and flexible that me luring his nose in between his front paws isn't so uncomfortable for him that he'd rather lay down. He'd rather just keep bending his head down to try and lick the treat. And so what I'm waiting for is him to just give in and say, laying down is easier than stretching my head in between my front paws. And he never did down, and he started to give up on me a little bit. So instead of continuing to ask him to lay down, I just treat him for staying in the crate and ask him to do something he is good at, which is a sit. And then I release him. With puppies, it's really important that you try and keep your training sessions pretty brief. They tend to kind of lose their ability to concentrate and focus. Their attention span isn't as long. And just like with people, dogs can lose their confidence. So if he feels like he didn't succeed, he's going to want to give up and not work for me. Looks like I eventually got him into a down, and I reinforced him a lot, and I've released him. It's really good. So again, the end goal behavior is to send your dogs to their crate and have them lay down immediately and settle in there with the door closed. The hard part with this behavior is, for the dog, is having you close the crate door and having you walk away, because again, what they want is to follow you. And so we need to train them that it's okay that mom or dad closes the crate door and walks away from the crate. Because I've only had these puppies for like less than 24 hours, I am going to, in the next video, show you what it looks like with one of my adult dogs that already has this crate settled down pat, and I'll show you how you gradually train the dog to be more and more okay with you closing the door and walking away.